The tech world is watching Microsoft implode in real time, and almost nobody saw it coming. Windows 11 was supposed to be the future, the next generation operating system that would dominate for a decade. Instead, it's become the biggest product disaster in Microsoft's history, and the fallout is getting worse every single day. Right now, as I'm recording this, Windows 11 market share sits at 28.6%. That's down from 32% just 4 months ago. Microsoft's internal projections from 2023 predicted they'd hit 55% adoption by March 2025. They're off by 26 percentage points. That's not missing a target. That's complete market rejection. And if you want to understand why Microsoft is panicking, why they're scrambling to fix what they broke, subscribe now because this story gets absolutely wild. Windows 10 officially lost support in October 2024. Microsoft cut off security updates, ended technical support, and told users to upgrade or be vulnerable. The response? Silence. Not compliance. Not mass upgrades. Just 437 million people still running Windows 10 5 months after end of life. That number is growing. People are actively choosing to run unsupported software rather than upgrade to Windows 11. They'd rather face potential security risks than deal with what Microsoft created. That tells you everything about how badly Windows 11 failed. But here's where it gets terrifying for Microsoft. Those users aren't just staying on Windows 10. They're leaving Windows entirely. Desktop Linux usage was 3.1% in June 2024. By January 2025, it hit 5.2%. That's a 68% increase in 7 months. Apple's Mac sales to business customers jumped 52% year over year. Chromebooks in the education and small business sectors are up 94%. This isn't people complaining on Reddit. This is mass migration. Microsoft is hemorrhaging users at a rate they've never seen before, and it's accelerating. Steve Ballmer, who ran Microsoft from 2000 to 2014, reportedly had a 2-hour emergency call with current CEO Satya Nadella in November 2024. Sources inside Microsoft say, Ballmer told him Windows 11 is an extinction-level event for the Windows ecosystem. He compared it to Windows Vista, except worse because users have viable alternatives now that they didn't have in 2007. When your predecessor is warning you that you're destroying the company's most important product, you're in serious trouble. The disaster started with a single decision. One requirement that Microsoft refused to back down from even as the evidence piled up that it was killing adoption. TPM 2.0, Trusted Platform Module version 2.0, a security chip that Microsoft decided was mandatory for Windows 11. Sounds technical, sounds reasonable, except it locked out hundreds of millions of computers that work perfectly fine. And when users discovered they couldn't upgrade, when they realized Microsoft was forcing them to throw away functional hardware, the rebellion began. Let me introduce you to Thomas Brennan. He's a video editor in Nashville, runs a one-man production company doing corporate videos and wedding films. In 2019, he built a custom editing workstation, AMD Ryzen 7 3700X processor, 64 GB of RAM, dual RTX 2080 graphics cards in SLI, 3 4K monitors. The whole setup cost him $4,300. It renders 4K video faster than most computers sold today. Zero problems. Not slow, not outdated, absolutely capable of handling everything he throws at it. October 2024 arrives. Windows 10 support ends. The upgrade prompts get more aggressive. Thomas finally decides to upgrade to Windows 11. He downloads the installation assistant, runs the compatibility check, and gets a red X. This PC can't run Windows 11, not because his CPU is too slow, not because he doesn't have enough RAM, because his motherboard doesn't have TPM 2.0. His motherboard is from 2019, and TPM 2.0 wasn't standard on AMD boards back then. It existed, but manufacturers didn't include it by default. Microsoft's solution? Buy a new computer. Spend another $4,000 or more on hardware to get an operating system update. His current computer that renders 4K video, that runs Adobe Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve without breaking a sweat, Microsoft says it's obsolete. It's not compatible with modern software, except it runs every single application perfectly. The only thing it can't run is Windows 11, and that's an artificial limitation Microsoft created. Thomas spent 3 days researching alternatives. He looked at buying a TPM module to install on his motherboard, found out his board doesn't have a TPM header. He looked at Windows 11 workarounds, found methods to bypass the TPM check, tried them. They worked initially. Then Microsoft released an update that broke the workaround and added detection to prevent people from doing it again. He looked at staying on Windows 10. Security experts warned it's dangerous without updates. He made a decision. He switched to Linux, Ubuntu Studio, specifically designed for creative professionals. It took him 2 weeks to migrate his workflow completely. He's using Kdenlive for editing, Blender for 3D work, and Ardor for audio. He kept a Windows 10 virtual machine for one specific plugin he needed, but 95% of his work happens in Linux now. He's not going back. He actually prefers it. The system is faster. It doesn't crash. It doesn't force updates at random times. He owns his computer again. That's not one isolated case. That's happening millions of times around the world. People with computers that cost thousands of dollars, that work perfectly, are being told by Microsoft those computers are garbage unless they buy new ones. And instead of buying new computers to run Windows 11, they're switching operating systems entirely. Microsoft created artificial obsolescence so aggressive it backfired completely. Let's talk about exactly what TPM 2.0 is and why Microsoft decided to require it, because the official explanation doesn't match reality. TPM is a dedicated security chip on your motherboard. It stores encryption keys, handles secure boot authentication, and provides hardware-based security features. Version 2.0 is the current standard, offering stronger encryption than the older 1.2 version. In theory, requiring it makes sense for security. Except here's the problem. TPM 2.0 became standard in new computers starting around 2016. Anything manufactured before that generally doesn't have it. Microsoft's own telemetry data from mid-2021, when they announced Windows 11, showed that 58% of Windows 10 computers didn't meet the requirements. They knew before launch they were locking out more than half their user base. They did it anyway. And here's where it gets suspicious. Microsoft could have required TPM 1.2, which would have covered most computers back to 2009. They specifically required 2.0. They could have made it optional with warnings for advanced users. They made it mandatory with no official bypass. They could have provided a grace period, allowed unsupported installations with the understanding that some features wouldn't work. They actively blocked workarounds and pushed updates to prevent unsupported installations. Why would Microsoft intentionally prevent people from using their new operating system? Rob Enderle, a technology analyst who's covered Microsoft for 30 years, says it's about two things. First, hardware partnerships. Intel, AMD, Dell, HP, Lenovo, they all needed people to buy new computers. The PC market was stagnant. Upgrade cycles stretched to 6, 7, 8 years because computers stopped getting meaningfully faster. Nobody needed new hardware. So Microsoft created a reason. They made the new OS require new hardware to force upgrade cycles that weren't happening naturally. Second, control. The TPM chip doesn't just provide security. It provides a unique hardware identifier that can't be changed, can't be spoofed, and can't be removed. Every computer running Windows 11 has a permanent tracking ID tied to that TPM chip. That ID is linked to your Microsoft account. Microsoft can track your hardware, your usage, your behavior across devices and reinstalls. It's persistent hardware-level identification, and it's mandatory if you want Windows 11. Privacy advocates immediately raised red flags. The Electronic Frontier Foundation published an analysis in September 2024 showing how TPM identifiers are accessible to third-party applications through Windows APIs. Your computer's unique ID can be read by any application that asks for it. No special permissions required, no user consent needed. It just gets the ID. That means every application you run can permanently identify your hardware. That means tracking across reinstalls, across account changes, across everything. Your computer has a serial number that advertisers, data brokers, and surveillance companies can access freely. Microsoft's response to privacy concerns: TPM 2.0 enhances security. That's it. No acknowledgement of the tracking implications. No options to disable the hardware ID. No transparency about who accesses it or how it's used. Just trust us. It's for security. Angela Morrison runs an IT consulting business in Seattle. She manages networks for 14 small business clients, total of about 200 workstations across all clients. Most of those computers were purchased between 2017 and 2020. They're fast. They work. Her clients have zero complaints. Then Windows 10 support ended. She ran compatibility checks across all 200 computers. 127 of them failed Windows 11 requirements. TPM 2.0 missing. She did the math, replacing 127 computers at an average of $1,200 per workstation. That's $152,400. Her clients aren't spending that. These are small businesses, restaurants, dental offices, accounting firms. They don't have $150,000 lying around for computer upgrades when their current computers work perfectly. She presented 3 options: buy new hardware and upgrade to Windows 11, stay on Windows 10 and accept the security risks, switch to Linux. 11 of her 14 clients chose Linux. She's migrating them to Ubuntu LTS with LibreOffice, Thunderbird for email, and web-based applications for everything else. The 3 clients who didn't choose Linux, 2 bought new hardware because they're locked into Windows-only software. 1 chose to stay on Windows 10 and take the risk. Not a single client was happy with Microsoft. Every single one felt abandoned by a company they'd been loyal to for decades. Angela lost potential hardware sales. She makes commission on business computer purchases. But she's building a new business in Linux consulting. She's getting referrals from those 11 clients to their business networks. Microsoft lost 127 licenses. She's thriving. That's the backfire. Microsoft tried to force hardware upgrades and created an entire migration industry away from Windows. Then there's the data security angle that nobody's talking about. The TPM chip stores encryption keys for BitLocker. Windows Drive encryption feature. That sounds secure. Your encryption keys are in dedicated hardware that malware can't easily access, except there's a backdoor. Microsoft holds a recovery key for every BitLocker encrypted drive. It's stored in your Microsoft account. If you lose access to your computer, Microsoft can recover your data. Convenient, right? Except that recovery key means Microsoft can decrypt your drive anytime they want. Law enforcement requests it, Microsoft hands it over. Your encrypted drive isn't encrypted from Microsoft. It's only encrypted from you. Security researchers have been screaming about this for years. The TPM requirement makes it mandatory. You can't use Windows 11 without TPM. You can't encrypt your drive securely without BitLocker on Windows 11 Pro. And BitLocker on Windows 11 automatically uploads your recovery key to Microsoft servers unless you actively prevent it through registry edits most users don't know exist. James Chen is a journalist in Hong Kong covering political stories. He can't have his sources' information accessible to anyone, including Microsoft. He upgraded to Windows 11 in December 2024 because his hardware was compatible. He turned on BitLocker for drive encryption. 2 weeks later, he learned about the recovery key upload. He checked his Microsoft account. The key was there. Microsoft had the ability to decrypt his entire drive without his knowledge or consent. He immediately migrated to Linux with Lucas encryption. That's Linux Unified Key Setup, a full disk encryption system where only he holds the keys. No company backdoor, no cloud recovery, just actual security. He wiped his Windows installation completely. His sources depend on his operational security. He can't trust Windows 11, not after discovering Microsoft has backdoor access to everything. That's journalists, activists, lawyers, healthcare providers, anyone handling sensitive information. They're all discovering Windows 11's security model means security from everyone except Microsoft. And they're leaving in droves. Now let's talk about the forced Microsoft account requirement, because this is where Microsoft really lost the trust of power users and IT professionals. Windows 11 Home Edition, the version that comes on most consumer laptops, requires a Microsoft account to install. Not optional, not recommended, required. You cannot complete the installation without signing in with a Microsoft email and password. You cannot create a local offline account during initial setup. The option was removed. Windows 11 Pro originally allowed local accounts during installation. Then Microsoft removed that too in version 22H2. Now, even Pro requires a Microsoft account unless you know specific workarounds involving command prompts and network disconnection. And Microsoft keeps patching those workarounds. They're playing cat and mouse with their own users, actively trying to prevent people from using Windows without giving Microsoft an email address and password. Why does this matter? Because your Microsoft account is the gateway to Microsoft's surveillance ecosystem. Once your computer login is tied to your Microsoft account, everything you do can be synced to Microsoft's cloud. Your settings, your preferences, your application usage, your browsing history if you use Edge, your files if OneDrive AutoSync is enabled. Microsoft gets a complete profile of everything you do on your computer. You can disable syncing, but it's opt-out, not opt-in. Most users don't know how. They set up Windows 11, create a Microsoft account like the setup demands, and suddenly their data is flowing to Microsoft servers. Their activity is being logged. Their usage patterns are being analyzed, all without clear consent, because the setup process doesn't adequately explain what's happening. David Park is a software developer in Seoul. He writes code for financial applications. Security is critical. He bought a new laptop in August 2024, a high-end ThinkPad for $2,800, opened it up, started the Windows 11 Pro setup. It demanded a Microsoft account. He doesn't want a Microsoft account. He doesn't want his development environment linked to any cloud service. He spent 90 minutes researching workarounds. He found the OOB bypass method. OOB stands for out-of-box experience, the initial setup process. You press Shift plus F10 during setup to open a command prompt, type specific commands to create a local account, and bypass the Microsoft account requirement. It worked. He got his local account. 3 weeks later, he's reading tech news and discovers Microsoft patched that exact workaround in the latest Windows 11 update. Anyone setting up a new computer after that update couldn't use the method he'd used. He realized Microsoft is systematically hunting down every method users find to maintain privacy and patching them out. They're spending development resources to prevent users from having local accounts. That means this isn't an oversight. It's not a design flaw. It's intentional policy. Microsoft doesn't want users to have offline accounts. They want every Windows 11 installation tied to a Microsoft account they control. David is done with Windows. His next laptop will be a MacBook. He's been a Windows developer for 15 years. He's got friends in the Windows development community. He says at least 40% of them are actively planning to switch platforms. These are developers who write Windows applications. They're abandoning the platform because they don't trust Microsoft anymore. And it's not just the account requirement in isolation. It's what comes with it. The Microsoft 365 subscriptions pushed constantly. OneDrive integration that's impossible to fully disable. Edge browser defaults that reset after updates. Bing search hard-coded into Windows search. Everything funneling users toward Microsoft subscription services. Windows used to be a product you bought. You paid for it once, you owned it, it was yours. Windows 11 is a service delivery platform. The operating system is just the vehicle to push subscriptions. Microsoft Office is now Microsoft 365, $70 to $100 per year depending on the plan. OneDrive storage is $2 per month for 100 gigabytes. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is $17 per month. Microsoft 365 Family is $100 per year. They're not selling software anymore. They're renting it. And Windows 11 is designed to force you into that rental ecosystem. Here's the really insane part. Microsoft's financial reports show subscription revenue is their fastest growing segment. Windows licensing revenue is flat or declining. That means their priority is subscriptions, not Windows adoption. They're willing to sacrifice Windows market share if it means higher subscription numbers. That's why they're forcing Microsoft accounts. That's why they're pushing OneDrive and Microsoft 365 so aggressively. They'd rather have fewer Windows users paying monthly subscriptions than more Windows users who just bought the OS once. But they miscalculated. They assumed users had no viable alternatives. They assumed people would grudgingly accept the new model because switching is hard. They were wrong. Let me introduce you to Rebecca Lawson. She's a high school English teacher in Ontario, Canada. She bought a new HP laptop in October 2024 for $950. It came with Windows 11 Home. She set it up, created a Microsoft account like it required, and started using it for lesson planning and grading. Within the first week, she's bombarded with prompts. OneDrive wants her to upgrade storage because her free 5 GB is almost full. Microsoft 365 offers a free trial with auto-renewal. Edge browser suggests she make it her default every single day. There are ads in the Start menu, actual advertisements for mobile games and Microsoft products in the Start menu of an operating system she paid for through the cost of her laptop. She paid $950 for hardware. That includes a Windows license, and Microsoft is advertising to her. In File Explorer, in the Settings app, in Notifications, she's getting marketed to in an operating system she paid for. It's like buying a car and having the dashboard display ads for the manufacturer's other products. It's insulting. She returned the laptop within the 30-day return window and bought a MacBook Air, spent $200. More expensive than the HP, but she owns it. Apple isn't advertising to her in the Finder. macOS doesn't push iCloud subscriptions with dark patterns. It just works without trying to extract more money from her every day. Microsoft lost a customer because they got greedy. And that story is repeating constantly. People are hitting their breaking point with the monetization. Windows 11 isn't an operating system anymore. It's an advertising platform that also happens to run applications. Then we get to Copilot and Recall, Microsoft's AI integration that nobody asked for and everybody hates. Microsoft invested $13 billion in OpenAI. They built ChatGPT technology into Windows. Copilot is embedded into the OS, sitting in your taskbar, watching what you do, ready to help with AI-generated suggestions. Sounds futuristic. In practice, it's intrusive, unreliable, and creepy. Recall was the feature that broke everything. Microsoft announced it in May 2024 as a flagship Windows 11 feature. It takes screenshots of everything you do every few seconds, stores them locally, analyzes them with AI. Then you can search your history using natural language. Ask Copilot what website you looked at last Tuesday with information about gardening, and it finds it by analyzing your screenshot history. Microsoft called it photographic memory for your PC. Security researchers called it a disaster. Kevin Beaumont, a cybersecurity expert, analyzed Recall the day after announcement and published a detailed breakdown of how catastrophically bad it was. The screenshots were stored in a local database with minimal encryption. Any malware running on your computer could access them. Any attacker with local access could exfiltrate your entire history, banking details, passwords, private messages, medical information, everything captured in screenshots and sitting in an easily accessible database. The privacy implications were even worse. Recall captures everything: work documents, personal photos, private conversations, medical research. There's no automatic filtering. If it's on your screen, it's captured. Microsoft said users could exclude certain applications, but that's manual configuration. By default, it captures everything. That means Windows 11 is taking screenshots of your activity constantly and storing them with minimal protection. The backlash was nuclear. Privacy advocates called it spyware. Security experts called it malware. Journalists compared it to surveillance software governments use to monitor dissidents. Microsoft pulled the feature 1 week before Windows 11's major update was supposed to launch. They delayed it indefinitely. Then in October 2024, they brought it back as an opt-in feature with improved encryption and authentication requirements. But the damage was done. Users saw what Microsoft wanted to build, an operating system that watches everything you do and records it. Even with the improvements, even with opt-in and encryption, people don't trust it. You're trusting Microsoft's word that the AI isn't capturing sensitive information. You're trusting that the encryption is unbreakable. You're trusting that Microsoft isn't accessing your screenshot database. And after everything else Microsoft has done, nobody trusts them anymore. Marcus Taylor is a therapist in Melbourne, Australia. He provides mental health counseling. He works from home with video sessions and electronic notes. Confidentiality is legally required. He can't have anyone, including software companies, accessing his client information. He uses Windows 10 Pro with local accounts and no cloud syncing. That's the pattern with Windows 11. Microsoft adds features users don't want, makes them difficult or impossible to disable, and expects people to adapt. They're designing Windows for Microsoft's priorities, not user priorities, and users are rejecting it en masse. And here's the truly scary thing for Microsoft. The next generation doesn't care about Windows. People under 25 grew up with smartphones and tablets. They use iPhones, Android phones, iPads. When they need a computer, they're just as likely to buy a MacBook or Chromebook as a Windows laptop. Windows isn't the default anymore. It's one option among many, and it's increasingly the option people avoid. Microsoft built Windows 11 for their own priorities: subscriptions, AI integration, hardware partnerships, data collection. They didn't build it for users. They assumed users would accept whatever Microsoft gave them because that's how it always worked. But the market changed. Alternatives got better. Users got more tech-savvy. And Microsoft's arrogance caught up with them. The TPM requirement was the spark. It told users their perfectly good computers were worthless. The forced Microsoft account was gasoline. It told users they don't own their computers. Copilot and Recall were the explosion. They told users Microsoft is spying on everything. And the performance problems were the confirmation. Windows 11 is worse than Windows 10 in almost every way that matters to actual users. If this opened your eyes to why Windows is dying and why millions of users are abandoning Microsoft forever, share this with everyone you know still struggling with Windows 11. Because Microsoft isn't admitting any of this. They're publishing blog posts about record cloud revenue. They're announcing new AI features. They're acting like everything is fine. But Windows 11 adoption is falling. Market share is eroding. The user base is fleeing. Subscribe if you want to see what happens when Windows drops below 50% market share.